What if Bran pulled Jaime out of the tower with him? Let's explore the depths of it in the video.
Are you completely mad?
He saw us.
It's all right, it's all right, it's all right.
He saw us.
I heard you the first time. Quite the little climb, aren't you? How old are you, boy?
10.
10. The things I do for love.
Bran screams and tumbles over the edge of the window, his eyes widening and hands reaching out to grab anything. He does. Jaime's shirt. His eyes widen as he's yanked out. The knight tries to grip the wall for support, but his feet stumble and he disappears out of the window. Cersei screams as the man and boy tumble off the edge and crash into the ground below. She dresses and hurries down steps, just as shouts ring across the courtyard. By the time she reaches the edge of the tower, several guardsmen and servants have already arrived. A small circle surrounds the pair as they stare with wide eyes, loudly wondering what just happened. She looks over at Jaime and is grateful to see he's fully dressed at least. She is about to order them off and shout for her own household to take them away when footsteps echo from the cobblestones and Ned Stark appears, his face stricken as he runs up to his son. Behind him, his maester and wife run up. As they examine the pair, Maester Luwin announces that both of them are still alive, but must be treated immediately.
What happened here?
The boy. He was climbing the tower and slipped. Jaime caught him, but he lost his footing.
Ned stares at her for a long moment, then at the two unconscious bodies on the ground. He sees Bran clutching Jaime's shirt tightly, and it seems like exactly what Cersei said happened. And yet, Ned recalls what Lysa Arryn had sent in her message, warning them not to trust the Lannisters. Now his expression hardens. The guards move to begin carrying both of them to the Maester's chambers, while the servants clear out. However, Catelyn notices something else.
What were you two doing in that tower?
That hardly seems like the relevant issue, Lady Stark.
I'm asking because the tower was not your designated quarters. I thought you said you wished to rest.
Cersei bites her lip and tries to think of something to deflect suspicion, but Catelyn sees how rumpled Cersei's dress is, like she had put it on in a hurry. Yet there was no bed there.
My wife was asking you a question, Your Grace.
That is enough. My brother could be dying because he saved your boy, and I will not be interrogated like a criminal.
Your Grace, no one here is that dismissive of your brother's actions, but you were a guest at Winterfell, and I want to know why you were entering a part of the castle not permitted to you as well, lest I am forced to assume you were doing something disreputable.
How dare you? You are but bannerman of the crown, Lord Stark. I am not obliged to answer any of your questions. If you continue with this, I will bring this matter up with my husband.
You are welcome to do so. But until then, my guards will escort you to your quarters, the room you were supposed to be in, and ensure you do not leave.
For all of Cersei's bluster, this plan backfires on her, as Robert is actually inclined to side with Ned in this situation, and demands to know what Cersei was doing. However, the Queen refuses to answer even after she is confined to those rooms. A standoff ensues, as her guards surround the room and keep her under close watch, but Ned and his men keep an eye on her to make sure she never leaves. At the same time, Jaime and Bran are both treated by Maester Luwin. Though neither is in danger of dying, both remain in a coma and can be moved. Soon enough, rumors begin to swirl about what is happening in Winterfell, spreading first around the north and then beyond as free riders and singers carry this tale to the surrounding castles and beyond the neck. One such singer carries this tale beyond the wall, as Mance Rayder finds his sudden division interesting and opens the potential to strike. However, riders soon reach Castle Rock, where Tywin is furious to hear that not only was his eldest son injured, but his daughter is imprisoned. He demands that Ned Stark immediately release them, claiming that Jaime acted heroically by saving his son, and Ned should be grateful for that much. He then ends with a threat that if these conditions are not met, he might be inclined to take more extreme actions. This seems to work on Robert, who advises Ned to drop the matter, but the Lord of Winterfell is adamant.
Whatever business Cersei had in that tower cannot possibly be worth the risk of war, is it, Ned? Perhaps you are correct, Your Grace. But then again, you could also be wrong. There is only one person who can answer that question, and she is currently barricaded herself in that tower.
And what of Lord Tywin?
What if this leads to war? Some say he's already raising his banners and recruiting sellswords. As your new hand, let me advise you when it comes to Lord Tywin. There is no appeasement. The moment you give him what he wants, he will demand more, and you will have to accommodate him or die. I will not accommodate him, and I advise you not to. He's got an army, Ned. Gold, and a fleet. He's not some lesser house you can frighten with a bit of force. We have the realm, Robert. The west follows him, but the Stormlands, Vale, and the north will follow you, as will the Tyrells and Tullys. Perhaps, but what do you hope to accomplish? Cersei refuses to talk, and I've been married to that woman for 15 years. There is little that can make her do what you want. She wasn't the only one there, Your Grace.
Though they continue to keep appearances by interrogating Cersei, Ned slowly turns his attention to Jaime, who remains comatose, at least for a time. Slowly, there is some improvement as he becomes more responsive, and Jaime soon awakens. When that happens, Ned is the first person to hear about it. Meanwhile, reports soon spread of raiders attacking the villages in the Riverlands, and even striking at some of the castles. These men wear no badges or adornments, but they are clearly Lannister men sent out in retaliation for kidnapping Cersei. When this fails to get the response Tywin was hoping for, many men begin to assemble as he calls his banners. He isn't the only one to act either, as ships from Dragonstone begin to set sail while Stannis calls his own troops. Instead of approaching Jaime directly, he asks Tyrion for help. While the rest of the Lannister men remain tense, Tyrion has largely remained out of the conflict, continuing his visits to the library as if nothing had happened. He feels the distrustful eyes of the Starks wherever he goes, but those are easy to ignore. He has gotten used to them long ago, and simply goes about his business. But as he enters the library today, Ned is waiting for him.
Your brother has awakened, Tyrion. I will allow you to visit him, but before you do, we must be clear on what exactly you will talk about with him. I intend to ask him about how he's feeling, and whether there is any permanent damage. Perhaps a quip or two about the weather, but that is all. And you will ask him about what happened in the tower. With all due respect, Lord Stark, I would rather not get in between you and my siblings' conflict. It is too late for that. It was too late when my son was brought into this. I have no intention of harming you, Tyrion. But make no mistake, I am prepared to keep you and your siblings here as long as it takes, and I may be less hospitable as time goes on. My Lord Stark, that sounds suspiciously like a threat. You may think of it however you like, but know that when a Stark gives you their word, they keep it. And what is it you would want me to say?
Hours later, Tyrion opens the door to find Jaime Lannister casually sitting up on the bed, a bowl of hot broth in his lap as he beckons his brother forward.
Ah, Tyrion. Just in time. I was starting to get lonely. Of course. The whole castle was worried sick about you, especially Lord Stark. Now? Yes. Don't you remember what happened? Cersei already said everything. Most of it? Well, that's good. So what does it Lord Stark wish to say?
Tyrion reaches into his doublet and pulls out a letter. When Jaime begins reading it, his eyes widen in surprise. Ned Stark was apologizing to him, saying that he begged for Jaime's forgiveness this whole incident and thanked him for his efforts to save his son. According to the letter, it says that Bran had accidentally kicked Jaime and knocked him off balance, sending them both stumbling out of the tower. As he finishes reading the letter, Jaime questions what kind of stories Cersei has been spreading and how she managed to convince the Starks of this. But he does not think too hard about it and relaxes.
A Stark in my debt? I could get used to that. Very well. Tell Lord Stark that I have received his letter and accept his words.
Tyrion smiles and begins making his way out. But as he shuts the door behind him, his smile fades as he realizes what this means. When Ned Stark hears about this, his face darkens. This means that Cersei is lying about her story. Even Robert slowly comes around to keeping his queen detained and decides to interrogate her and get the answers once and for all. The tension in the air is sharp enough to draw blood. Lords and ladies fill the long hall, whispers swirling like a gathering storm. At the head of the room, Cersei Lannister stands defiantly before the dais, flanked by her guards. Ned Stark sits beside King Robert, arms folded, his face grim. Suddenly, the doors swing open with a gust of northern wind. Cloaked in black and crimson, Lord Stannis Baratheon enters.
Your Grace, Apologies for this unexpected visit, but I have important news to discuss. I have seen the records he compiled before his death. Suspiciously timed, wasn't it? What letters? John Arryn was investigating the parentage of your children, the color of his hair, their features, every one of them, golden-haired, not a single trace of Baratheon black. Even a bastard of House Baratheon bears the hallmark. But your children? None.
You dare speak such filth in front of my husband?
I state facts. The bloodlines are clear. Your children were born of adultery, and he has suspected a father. You and your brother, Jaime.
A gasp. Robert slams his goblet down, wine sloshing across the stone.
Is this true?
And what if it is? The Targaryens wed brother and sister for centuries, crowned and worshipped for it. Where was your outrage then, Stannis?
Cersei's eyes flash, her calm shattered. Her voice rises loud enough for all to hear.
The throne was forged by incest, by fire and fury. Don't pretend this realm ever cared for virtue. It only fears power.
Her words echo off the hall's ancient walls. Silence hangs for a moment before Robert slowly rises, staring at her as though he's seeing her for the first time.
You killed Jon Arryn, didn't you?
I have not done any such thing. The old fool died on his own accord, and I thank him for it. He could not keep his nose from where it didn't belong.
Take her away. Find her a cell, preferably far from her brothers.
Their guards move to act, and Cersei prepares to defend herself. But they see that between the Stark and Baratheon men, they are badly outnumbered. Even the King's Guard seems less certain, so reluctantly they lower their weapons and allow them to escort Cersei away. Jaime is also taken to a cell, where he continues to be treated by Maester Luwin. Once they are escorted away, Ned and Robert share a look, one not of triumph or victory, but of fear. They know what this means. War with Tywin is now inevitable, and they must begin making preparations. Soon enough, the Lannister hammer falls in the Riverlands as 20,000 Westermen cross the Golden Tooth and begin their rampage across the region. The border regions already weakened by continuous raids are tossed out of the frying pan and into the fire as they strike. They quickly smash through the Riverlords' hastily organized defenses, forcing men like Lord Piper and Vance to beat a hasty retreat or risk being crushed entirely. Meanwhile, other Riverlords try desperately to scramble their defenses, while Edmure Tully lets out desperate pleas for help. Robert responds with uncharacteristic vigor. Although he has spent years resting on his laurels, the war seems to restore some of his vitality. He quickly sends word to the Stormlands and Vale to march reinforcements, declaring Tywin Lannister a traitor. Meanwhile, the Lannister children are taken into custody, including their own children. Ned is ordered to muster his banners as well and begin to march south. They know that this advance guard is only the beginning, and the Lannisters can raise thousands of men if it comes to it, so the army proceeds slowly, but decisively. Thankfully, the other regions respond in kind. Renly wastes no time in assembling his men, while Lady Lysa can't openly disobey an order from the king, and reluctantly marches men out from the Bloody Gate under the command of the Blackfish. The first major battle takes place in Seaguard, where the Lannister army surrounds the castle and forces Jason Mallister to hole up inside. The Westerland siege engines quickly begin battering the walls with stones and ballista bolts, aiming to force a breach. But it takes too long as they soon receive word that the Northmen have arrived. A surprise attack by Roose Bolton routs out their rearguard, and a sortie by Jason Mallister humiliates the Lannister army and forces them to retreat. At the front of this force is Robert, who, although struggling to command his men from the front, still rides alongside them to raise morale. Soon enough, the reinforcements from the rest of the kingdoms arrive. The Westerland army under Sir Kevin puts up a spirited resistance, holding back the advancing forces and preventing them from uniting. But he is outnumbered by nearly 3-1 and must eventually withdraw back to the Westerlands, behind the safety of the Golden Tooth. He sends letters to Tywin asking what he intends to do, but he does not receive many answers. This is because Tywin is busy sending words to allies in the Iron Islands. Though the Greyjoys have little love for him, Balon has long feared the shadow of House Lannister and hates the Baratheons and Starks. He is quick to accept an alliance with Tywin after being permitted to raid the north and establish his kingdom. Soon enough, these Ironborn prove their worth, as they strike across the western coast of the north, attacking Bear Island, Torrens Square, and Deepwood Motte. But the biggest attack comes at Moat Cailin, where the bulk of the Iron Fleet strikes. capturing the critical citadel and preventing aid from reaching south, leaving Ned and his army trapped. Meanwhile, the north is thrown into chaos as the Ironborn attacks bring their offensive to a halt, as many lords wish to return home and defend their lands. To make matters worse, reavers aren't the only thing the Ironborn bring. From these longships, they also deploy raiders from the Westerlands, including Sir Gregor and Tywin Lannister himself, with a small army. This force begins pushing inland, deeper than where any Ironborn can go, as they strike into the castles there, using the captured Ironborn fortifications as bases. Soon enough, they even begin to threaten Winterfell, and with a proper army on the field, the North must be wary of engaging Tywin. But one person is not afraid. Mance Rayder might have returned beyond the wall, but his spies continue to report everything to him. Upon hearing of the North's predicament, he immediately sends out emissaries to offer an alliance. He wishes to cross and settle the North, and Tywin has the means of helping him. At first, Tywin can hardly believe it. Though the wildlings are savages, they number more than 100,000, and they can provide him with the forces not to just crush the North, but maybe even win the war. Not only does Tywin agree to this, he also personally pledges to arm the wildlings. He uses his Ironborn ships to begin sending weapons and armor to the Free Folk, arming 3,000 of them with steel weapons and mail armor. However, it will take months before this army can be mobilized, so Tywin must hold out until then. To beat them, Roose Bolton comes up with a brutal strategy. Use a scorched earth system to deny Tywin's resources and whittle down his army. Though he might be able to supply by sea, these efforts can be hampered by raids. Robb is reluctant to burn the land he was told to protect, but he sees no other option and agrees. Soon enough, Roose sends his men to begin forcing villagers to evacuate inland, leaving their farms and whatever they cannot carry. Grain, animals, and other foodstuffs are carted off or burned to prevent the Lannisters from using them. The Starks fortify Winterfell and stock up on supplies, just as the other lords under the command of House Hornwood, Tallhart, and Serwyn begin raiding the Lannister supply lines. These are aimed at halting the Lannister advance and causing them trouble. They continuously ambush supply caravans and soon leave the Lannister army starving, forcing Tywin to break off his push to Winterfell and instead retreat to his base in Torrhen Square. But he now knows that reinforcements are coming and is happy to prolong the war as long as possible. Meanwhile, in the Westerlands, things are not going so well. Though the Golden Tooth serves its purpose and keeps the advancing Royalist army back, they do not have the same luck in the rest of their territories. Down south, the Reach advances from Crakehall and then begins their attack by sea, using the Redwind fleet to sweep aside whatever flotilla the Lannisters float against them. They begin to push deeper as Kevan Lannister cannot hold off against the overwhelming numbers of the Reach. They are soon joined by a contingent of Stormlanders who join forces with them under the command of Renly. He eggs Mace on, reminding him that if Cersei is deposed, Robert might be looking for a wife, and jockeys Marjorie to fit that position. But while they conduct a fighting retreat, Kevan transfers as much wealth as he can to safety, taking it to Castle Rock or other islands, while the Ironborn send their fleets out to protect it. Still, the position looks bleak for them as Kevan prepares Castle Rock for a siege. The cell is colder than Jaime remembers. Not from the draft, it's the weight of his thoughts that chills him. He sits alone beneath the flickering torchlight, his once golden hair now matted and dull, the bruises on his cheek fading, but the one on his chest festering stronger. Cersei's voice still haunts him, the hiss of her warnings, her pleas, her love, if that's what it truly was. At first, he gladly defended his choice, saying that his love for her is all that matters, that he would gladly go to war for her and their children's claim. But as the war rages, he does not once get to unsheath his sword. Instead, he spends his days in his cell. And with that, doubt begins to creep up in his mind. He questions whether he made the right choice. Most of all, he's horrified that he has just doomed Cersei with his careless words. Now that the whole realm knows of his incest, they know of Cersei's infidelity, and it leaves her vulnerable. If Robert ever decided to lop off her head, there would be little to stop him. The law would probably be on his side too. But he does not have the means of making it right. When the door creaks open, he half expects her, but it's Stannis Baratheon who steps through, silent and straight-backed, like the edge of a drawn sword.
You've come to gloat? No. I've come to offer you a path. Didn't know you dealt in redemption. I don't. I care about justice and truth. And without that, this war has dragged on for longer than it should. so I am prepared to do anything that might bring it to a quicker end. The Queen will be tried. Her lies have cost the realm, but there's still a chance to end this without drowning the kingdoms in Lannister blood. Confess, and I will argue for her life, and perhaps yours.
Jaime's jaw clenches. His heart stirs at the thought. Cersei spared, but the reality settles over him like a shroud. Even if she lived, would anything of what they once were survive?
How would that happen? You on the wall, and her and the Silent Sisters, and our children? Fostered, somewhere far away. I doubt anyone would care to marry them, but I do not believe in murdering children. I would even take Joffrey if given the chance. That boy is in sore need of discipline. So my family will be split apart, scattered across the winds, but they'll live. I threw the boy, Bran. I pushed him. I did it to protect her. And what were you doing in the room? I can describe it, but I doubt you'd like to hear it. I don't, but the king does. Do this, and I will do what I can. But I make no promises. Justice is not a game of barter. Then get me to the capital.
The Great Hall of the Red Keep is not built for silence, but today it bears it. Courtiers and lords press against its crimson pillars, their faces pale, whispering behind gloved hands. The Iron Throne looms above them all, black and jagged, like a frozen firestorm. King Robert sits slouched atop it, one hand clenched around the pommel of his hammer. The weight of the moment bears down even on him, his usual bluster replaced by something colder, steadier. Cersei stands at the base of the dais, chains draped over her wrists like mock jewelry. Her hair is immaculate, her dress embroidered, but there's no hiding the fury in her eyes. She has not spoken since arriving until now.
Is this what 15 years of marriage wins me, Robert? Shame and spectacle?
You earned it. By the gods, I'll see it answered.
Then the door opens. The crowd parts like wind across tall grass as Jaime Lannister steps inside, escorted by 2 Baratheon guards. He walks slowly, limping slightly, but his spine is straight.
You have something to say, Kingslayer. I confess. It was I who threw Bran Stark from the tower at Winterfell. It was because he saw us, me and the Queen. I did so because I panicked and did not know what to do. I thought he might reveal everything to his parents.
A collective gasp sucks the breath from the hall. Cersei pales, lips curling with venom.
Her children, Joffrey, Myrcella, Tommen, are not yours, your grace. They are mine.
Cersei screams, a shriek of rage and betrayal that echoes off the vaulted ceiling. Her chains rattle as she lunges, but the guards restrain her. Jaime does not flinch.
By all the gods, you made a fool of me. Of the realm, of that crown you wore. Have you no shame, woman?
My shame all left after I had married you.
Then take that pride with you to the Silent Sisters. In the meantime, I hereby name Eddard Stark as Lord Protector, should I fall in battle. And as my heir, I name my eldest son, Edric Storm, as heir.
Ned says nothing, only inclines his head. From the shadows steps Stannis, who nods in approval. He was the one who recommended that choice, as he is the one who both he and Renly can agree on. Meanwhile, as they make preparations to take the fight to the Lannisters, Jaime is sent to the Wall, where he will serve the remainder of his sentence. Though the Lannister scoffs at it, he nonetheless walks out with his head held high. In contrast, Cersei rages as she is brought to serve out her days as a Silent Sister. It takes several of the women to escort her away, but when Jaime arrives at Castle Black, he is greeted by a familiar face, Jon Snow. Jaime doesn't recall speaking to the Stark bastard, but he had seen him several times throughout his stay in Winterfell. Jon recognizes him as well, and his eyes narrow at the sight of Sir Jaime. Word had reached him of what Jaime was accused of doing to Bran, and to the Kingslayer's dismay, Jon has seniority over him. As he was on watch longer and had already proven himself loyal, Jaime is forced to answer to him. Though all men are expected to put aside their grievances when they join the Night's Watch, Jon finds it difficult to put aside his old hatreds and instead starts to take advantage of his position. While not outright malicious, he enjoys sending Jaime to serve menial tasks, pushing him in training sessions and leaving him to guard the wall in the dead of night. To his surprise, he finds an unexpected ally in Sir Alliser. The old knight never forgot how Tywin sent him here and enjoys giving Sir Jaime a hard time. turning a blind eye to some of Jon's abuse. Jaime seems to take this all without complaint. That is, until one training session where he requests to duel with Jon Snow. When the young watchman looks at Sir Alistair, the knight chuckles and shakes his head.
Go on then, Lord Snow. Or are you so advanced that you can now choose to avoid training?
Taking a deep breath, he hops into the yard and draws his sword. The two circle around just as Jaime strikes, his sword thrusting forward and trying to force Jon back. He barely catches it, but Jaime is already pulling back and switching movements to unleash a series of brutal attacks. The only consolation is that Jaime now fights with a permanent limp thanks to his fall from the tower. This slows him down and makes his skills seem just a bit more human. He finds himself stumbling back as Jaime advances at a leisurely walk, his blade flashing back and forth, driving him back.
Does it feel good, Lord Snow, to be the one in charge, the one doing the spitting and mocking?
Jon tries to block his attack, but Jaime pushes his sword aside and shoves him back.
Bet you've waited your whole life for this chance. The chance to show someone that you can lash out to.
Jon ducks under the attack and tries to thrust low, but Jaime shoves his sword into the dirt and kicks him back.
Come on. I don't blame you for it. I would have done the same thing. After all, I am the Kingslayer.
He suddenly twists and sends Jon's sword flying as he lunges forward. Though these movements are slow, they pick up speed and power. Before Jon even realizes it, he is whining and trying to dodge these attacks. He ducks under one strike and then jumps back from another.
People expect that from me, from the Lannisters. Treacherous and deceitful. But you're a Stark. A good, honorable Stark.
He dives forward and sweeps his sword. Suddenly, Jon's legs give beneath him as Jaime knocks him over. He places a sword against his throat.
Finish him, Kingslayer.
Jaime looks down at him, but then sheathes his sword and shrugs.
No. I think I'd rather have him come at me again.
This leaves Jon alone to pick himself up from the ground, glaring at Jaime as he leaves. Being spared seems to hurt more than if the Kingslayer had simply beaten him to the ground. His brothers do not make things easier for him later that night. The cold gnaws at the bones even through layers of wool and fur, and the wind howls across the ramparts like some ancient starving wolf. Yet, the cold isn't what makes Jon's skin crawl tonight. It's the laughter. He hears it behind his back as he returns from the yard. The snickers of boys barely older than squires. Someone mimics Jaime's limp, and another mimics Jon's fall. Jon says nothing. He keeps walking, jaw tight, Ghost padding silently beside him. He knows what they're saying. He lost badly, but it wasn't the loss that stung. It was the look in Sir Jaime Lannister's eyes, like he already knew Jon would be easy, like he'd fought ghosts heavier than Jon's pride. As if what he did to Jon's family was hardly worth fearing, hardly worth respecting. Jon walks into the armory to fetch a whetstone and nearly bumps straight into him. Jaime. He sits alone on a bench near the wall, polishing a rusted blade not fit for ceremony. His hair is damp, probably from the melting snow. He doesn't look up right away. Truth be told, the Kingslayer got off a little better. Although he had won, and that should have granted him some respect, he was sorely mistaken. It isn't like the South. Here, titles do not mean anything, and few treat him any differently than if he were a commoner. It doesn't mean that Sir Alistair still makes it his mission to make Jaime's life a living hell. While Jon gives him a wide berth, the Crownlander continues to mock him. He can rarely go by without an insult of some kind regarding his leg or a sharp criticism.
I was wondering how long before I'd get a visit. Thought you might be braver, Snow. I came for a stone. Might look for a mirror. Funny thing, you fight like a Stark, but you sulk like a little Alistair. Keep looking at me like that and you might develop his scowl. Careful what you say. You're not the only one with command here. You're no lion here, just another black brother. We're nothing alike, Kingslayer. No. You seem to enjoy ordering me about like a servant. You definitely enjoy that. Doesn't sound familiar? Come on, you liked it. You tasted power and decided to play with it. Enough. At least I didn't push a child out of a building. Tell me, did you enjoy that?
They glare at each other. For a moment, the silence is a breath away from violence. Jaime stiffens. The tension sits between them like a blade on a table. Jon regards it almost immediately, not because Jaime doesn't deserve it, but because something in the man's face changes. Not rage, not arrogance. Regret.
You think I sleep easily, Snow? You think I don't see the boy's face every time I close my eyes? Then why did you do it? For love,
Stark, if you love someone enough, you'll do anything for them. And what about those who get hurt along the way? Don't they deserve something? I thought a man's sins were washed away when they joined the Night's Watch. Did they not deserve an apology? I did, in my own way. But men like me don't get to say sorry. No one wants to hear it. Then why did you come then? Because I'd rather a wall of ice than sit on a court of lies. I pushed Bran. I told them. And I lost everything. And now I get to find out who I am when no one's watching.
Jon stares at him, the firelight playing across his face. He sees the lines in Jaime's eyes now. Not the one time made, but the kind regret carves.
I'm sorry for what I did. From now on, I'll make sure Sir Alistair goes easy on you.
And what of you, Snow? Why did you decide to apologize?
Not all bastards need to be dwarves.
Tyrion?
He told me that at Winterfell, when I still thought being a bastard was the worst thing a man could be.
They sit in silence for a time. The only sound is the crackle of the brazier.
He's smarter than both of us.
Wiser, too. I hated you. I wanted to see you suffer.
And now?
Maybe just in the training yard.
Jaime laughs, and the two begin to relax for the first time in weeks. And slowly but surely, the two men begin to fight together. Though their circumstances have brought them together as enemies, they slowly become brothers. They train together, draw watches as punishment from Sir Alistair, and Jaime shows him some of his sword tricks. For a time, the two are able to live in peace as the rest of the Seven Kingdoms drown in war. The North continues to be pressed by the Ironborn and by Tywin Lannister. Though they are slowly pushed back to the coast, the Westermen stubbornly cling to Deepwood Motte, Moat Cailin, and Torrhen's Square. Their dominance of the sea allows supplies to be ferried from the Iron Islands and the Westerlands to them. But even these supply lines grow tenacious. As the Westermen are driven back all across their lands, Kevin remains holed up in Lannisport and Castle Rock. These prove to be among the only fortifications that can resist them. But despite that, it seems like the end is near, as Tywin is about to be cut off entirely from the south. But it doesn't matter. Wildling scouts arrive and bear news. The Wildlings are approaching the wall. Winter grips Castle Black with the unrelenting hands. Jon Snow and Jaime Lannister stand shoulder to shoulder on the ramparts, their black cloaks whipping behind them. They've grown close over the weeks, as close as men can be when they sleep in ice and bleed into the snow. Jon has begun to see beyond the Golden Line. Jaime, to his surprise, has begun to respect the bastard, perhaps even envy him. There is honesty in the Watch, something he never had at court. The two of them have earned the other's trust. Every day, Jon stands beside Jaime when he must draw watches. Even when he's not assigned, Jon makes it a point to be there as a show of solidarity. Though Alistair mocks them, he's not bothered to stop them, leaving them to freeze together. Meanwhile, Jaime begins teaching Jon and the other young rangers some tricks with swordplay. As a veteran of many battles, Jaime gladly shows them how to counter different weapons and use tricks with the sword that even Sir Alistair cannot manage. But peace in the north is as thin as breath in the cold. Soon after, Jaime finds a note resting on his bed, without a trace of the sender. But as Jaime reads it, he sees that they are orders for a midnight meeting the next day in Molestown. When Jaime heads out, he finds a group of ragged travelers standing wrapped in furs and patchwork cloaks. Beneath the grime, Jaime recognizes something polished, something unnatural. Steel. The leader steps forward, grinning through rotted teeth.
Sir Jaime, I bring tidings from your Lord Father. A gift. Generous as always. Lord Tywin offers you your freedom, Kingslayer. Break your vow and help us open the wall. We'll see you pardoned, even rewarded. Just ensure that we capture Castle Black.
But Jaime says nothing. His eyes are locked on Vargo's. Somewhere, long ago, this kind of offer would have stirred him, a chance to walk free, to return to a world that once feared him. But that world is gone, and these black brothers, fools and misfits though they are, have begun to feel more like family than any lion ever did.
Is that all? You'll think about it.
No, I won't.
The next day, when the strike is supposed to happen, the Night's Watch is waiting. Ghost growls softly from the shadows while barricades are erected to block their advance. But as they finish up, the first riders arrive. A force of Dothraki riders who harass their forces with a rain of arrows. They fire onto the barricades and force the rangers to remain behind their defenses. But Ghost is faster. The direwolf barrels into him, fangs flashing at the nearest Dothraki and tearing out his throat before retreating behind the barricades under the cover of the Night's Watch crossbows. However, these attacks carry on throughout the night, with Dothraki, Lannister, and Mirman firing upon the barricades and preventing anyone from leaving. That is, until scouts return with grim news. The gates of Greyguard and Icemark have been opened from within. Smoke rises in the far east. The wildlings are through. The wildlings descend like winter itself, chaotic, merciless, endless. They pour through the unguarded gates in droves. Raiders, giants, mammoths. The forces of the Shadow Tower try to stall their advance, but they meet not the masses of poorly equipped warriors, but a force of free folk personally armed by Tywin Lannister. Garbed in mail and bearing steel, they appear just as well equipped as any Westerosi army and make quick work of the rangers on the wall. At Castle Black, ravens are loosed. One flies to Winterfell, and the others to the Umbers, Boltons, Glovers, and other major houses. Each one says the same thing. The wall has been breached.
We ride north.
And ride he does, through snow-choked passes and across frozen rivers, his banner snapping behind him. But it's not fast enough, until he hears the second raven's call. Jaime Lannister warns of the breach before it spreads. He rides south through the storm to intercept them, to meet the young wolf in the White Waste. At last, Jaime and Robb Stark meet again, this time not as enemies, but as allies. He comes with a warning that Shadow Tower has broken, and thousands upon thousands of them come forth, not just warriors, but giants and mammoths. When Robb rushes to meet them with a hastily assembled army of about 10,000 veterans, Tywin renews his offensive and pushes towards Winterfell. The battle that follows is unlike any the Watch has faced. At first, the North's heavy horse carries the day, smashing through the wildling center and driving them back. Even the armored freefolk lack discipline and cannot withstand a proper cavalry charge. Their spear walls fare no better, especially when Greywind leaps over their defenses and tears at them. But things are not so easy. Eventually, Mance sends the giants and mammoths in, and these prove to be tougher opponents. The horses panic at the sight of them and scatter, breaking apart their formation. With the northern cavalry scattering, the infantry is left vulnerable and is nearly surrounded as giants smash through their ranks with clubs and hammers, and raiders rush in between. Robb rallies a portion of cavalry and, with Greywind by his side, launches a counterattack that saves his army from destruction. Still, it is a victory for the wildlings, and Robb must lick his wounds. But as he regroups, the wildlings come under attack from the rear. Arrows fill the sky. Jon leads from the front. Jaime rides beside him, sword flashing, laughter on his lips. They have perhaps 200 rangers with them, and a horn sounds. Desperate, but defiant as they hit the rear. For many wildlings, they have gotten complacent in victory, and this sudden attack takes them off guard, killing hundreds and forcing the wildlings to be more cautious, as even a few giants fall with lances in their backs. While this happens, Osha decides to offer her advice to Robb.
You're in a tough situation, young wolf. These free folk don't cross the wall just to surrender to the first pup who bears the path.
I am not just expecting them to surrender. I intend to give them war.
War or no war, they won't yield to you. The wildlands beyond the war have things that would make lordlings like you soil their breeches. Your armies don't frighten them. If you want to surrender, then give them a reason to stop fighting.
They pledged themselves to Tywin Lannister.
They offered to work with him because he helped them beyond the wall. Give them a better deal, and they will accept it.
With that in mind, Robb decides to send Osha out to the wildling camp as the Night's Watch wages a guerrilla war against them. Though small, they are effective in slowing down and delaying their attack on Winterfell until Osha reaches them and presents Robb's terms. He does not ask them to yield or go beyond the wall. All he asks is that they remain out of the war. He points out that they have fulfilled their obligation to Tywin by bloodying Robb Stark's nose and offers to help settle them. At first, wildlings like the Weeper and Rattleshirt wish to reject this offer outright, but Mance considers it. This will allow them to settle the free folk without fully conquering the north, something he feels is beyond their abilities, so he considers it and accepts. Some agree, others vanish back into the frost. And soon, news arrives of the wildlings' seeming disappearance. None are more surprised than Tywin, who did not plan on them leaving and hoped to launch a two-pronged assault. But with the Stark forces bloodied, Tywin still hopes to take advantage of the chaos and surround Winterfell. He lays siege to the castle while Robb leads sorties out. These fights are intense as the Northmen are driven by a fierce desire to protect their homes. They cut through the Lannister men and try to force gaps in their lines. but Tywin and his Ironborn close ranks and drive them back. For the rest of the day, this is how the battle goes. That is, until the dead of night, when they hear sounds coming from the woods. Suddenly, giants and wildlings burst from the trees, emerging from the foliage in the dead of night and hacking through the Lannister men as they struggle to form up. At the same moment, the Starks burst out from Winterfell, Grey Wind leading the charge and tearing into their ranks. The Lannister camp falls into chaos as the skirmish becomes a full battle, and then a rout, with them fleeing back to their longships. Tywin tries to organize a retreat, but a wildling arrow finds his eye, and he drops to the ground. With that, the rest of the Lannister offensive collapses. The Ironborn holdings in the north fall one by one without their mainland allies to support them. The same is true for Castle Rock, as Tywin's death rattles the garrison and the remaining bannermen. Soon enough, many decide to simply bend the knee rather than prolong the war and see no help arriving. Kevan surrenders. In the end, Ned is far from pleased with Robb's plan, but he also can see where he was coming from and begins negotiating with Mance to come to an arrangement once he returns north. Meanwhile, Jaime quietly slips back to the wall alongside Jon. Their job done as they focus on guarding the realms of men. That's our theory. Westeros is a land filled with exciting stories and possibilities, and we love exploring them. If you want to accompany us on this journey across the Seven Kingdoms and beyond, then please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.